Good evening, students. Myself, Starlet Jose. In this video, I would like to discuss about the fourth chapter of chemistry, the structure of atom. For many centuries, people believed that atoms are the smallest particle of matter and they are indivisible. Atoms are very small particles that are smaller than anything that we can imagine. The idea of divisibility of atoms goes back to around 500 BC. An Indian philosopher named Maharshi Kanad was the first one who postulated that the atom is indivisible. According to him, matter is not continuous. Matter is made up of tiny particles named paramanus. Param means final or ultimate, and anu means particles. So, the meaning of paramanu is final particle or the ultimate particle. Another two Greek philosophers, Democritus and Leucippus, they suggested that if we go on dividing a matter, a time will come that we cannot further divide. They named those particles as atoms, which came from the Greek word atomos, which means indivisible. However, these philosophies are just thoughts without any proof. Philosophies need scientific validation. So, scientists started the journey to discover the atoms. Dalton's atomic theory was the first complete attempt to describe all matter in terms of atoms and their properties. Let us see the main postulates of Dalton's theory. First, matter is made up of very small particles called atoms. According to Dalton, all matter, whether an element, compound, or a mixture, is made up of small particle called atoms. Second postulate, atoms are indivisible. Third, the atoms of an element have the same weight. That is, all atoms of the same element are identical, but the atoms of different elements differ in size and mass. Fifth postulate, it is the atoms of element that take part in a chemical reaction. A chemical reaction results in the rearrangement of atoms in the reactants and the products. Finally, the atom of an element combined in a simple numerical ratio with those of other element to form a compound, which means the compounds are produced through different whole number combinations of atoms. From all these assumptions, we can define atom as the smallest part of an element that takes part in a chemical reaction. Have you ever thought, how does an atom look like? Or what does it contain? Next, we are going to discuss about what an atom consists of. Subatomic particles. They are the particles which are smaller than the atom. John Dalton, Rutherford, and J.J. Thomson conducted experiments and gave the structure of an atom. J.J. Thomson proposed that electrons are embedded in a positive sphere. Rutherford's alpha particle scattering experiment led to the discovery of the atomic nucleus, and his model of atom proposed that a very tiny nucleus is present inside the atom and electrons revolve around this nucleus. Chadwick discovered presence of neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. So the three subatomic particles of an atom are the electrons, protons, and neutrons. Let us move on and see a little more about these particles. Firstly, we have electrons. J.J. Thomson's experiments with the cathode ray tubes showed that all atoms contain tiny negatively charged particles or called electrons. His experiment is called cathode ray experiment. Let us see the cathode ray experiment. As you can see here, the basic setup was a glass tube, which is also called discharge tube or cathode ray tube. The both ends of this discharge tube connected with two metallic plates. The metallic plate, which is connected to the negative terminal of the battery called cathode, and the metallic plate which is connected to the positive terminal of the battery called anode. The air was removed from the glass container with a pump to lower the pressure of the gas. And it is around 0.01 to 0.001 millimeter of mercury. When a high voltage is applied across the terminals of the tube, the end of the tube opposite to the cathode, that is the anode, there you can see a glow. And this phenomenon is called fluorescence. Some invisible rays starting from the cathode fall on the opposite wall of the test tube, causing this fluorescence. And these rays were named as cathode rays because it starts from cathode. So this is the cathode ray experiment. When we apply a high voltage to the discharge tube, some invisible rays starts from the cathode and it strikes on the walls of the anode, which gives a fluorescence or which starts glow, and this phenomenon is called fluorescence. The rays coming from the cathode called cathode rays, which are of negatively charged. You already know that like charges repel and the opposite charges attract. As the rays move from the negative plate to the positive plate, we can say that these are of negatively charged particles. That is why it is attracted towards the positive plate. To verify the cathode rays contain negatively charged particles, J.J. Thomson repeated this experiment. Let us see the repeated experiment. And he concluded that the cathode rays travel in straight lines, or this is the first property of the cathode ray. Cathode rays travel in straight lines. When he placed an opaque object in front of the rays, it was observed that there forms a shadow opposite to that object. He placed an object in front of the cathode rays and he observed that there is a shadow just opposite to that object, which shows that cathode rays travel in straight lines. And on placing an electrical field, it was observed that the rays move away from the negative plate and attracted towards the positive plate. From this, J.J. Thomson concluded that cathode rays consist of negatively charged particles. He repeated the experiment by showing a magnetic field towards the beam, and he found that the beam deflects with the magnetic field also. The last property was that the cathode rays travel with a high speed almost equal to the speed of the light and hence possess kinetic energy. For this, he placed a fan on the path of the cathode rays. He observed that the fan rotates when beam comes in contact with it. From this, he concluded that the cathode particles possess kinetic energy. So we can conclude the characteristics of cathode rays as they consist of negatively charged material particles called electrons. They travel in straight lines and cast sharp shadows. They cause ionization of gas through which they pass. They are deflected by electric and magnetic fields towards positive field. The particles constituting cathode rays are all alike. They do not change with the gas, the electrodes and the kind of glass used for making the tube. Next, we have the charge and mass of the electrons. The charge of the electron is considered as -1 unit and mass of the electron is taken as 1 upon 1840th of a hydrogen atom. Next we have the protons. As you know, all the atoms are electrically neutral, but we found that the particles, electrons, are of negatively charged. How is it possible? There should be an equal number of particles with a positive charge so that the overall charge on atom becomes zero. These particles also found in the discharge tube itself when cathode rays are formed. Let us have a look at the rays which formed along with the cathode rays. They are called anode rays. A scientist named Goldstein discovered the presence of this positively charged rays. He, he found it during the experiment with the discharge tube using a perforated cathode. A perforated cathode is a metallic plate with holes in it or perforations in it. He found that some rays passed through these holes in a direction opposite to that of the cathode rays. These rays are known as anode rays because they seem to be coming from the anode. When an electrically charged rod or a magnet shone near to these rays, it is found that the rays deflected towards negative end of the electric field, from which he concluded that anode rays are positively charged particles. These rays were named as anode rays or canal rays because they starts from the anode and moving towards the cathode, or it is passing through the canals of the cathode. So call it Goldstein called it as canal rays, and J.J. Thomson called them positive rays. Let us see the anode ray experiment and its a characteristic. As you can see here, there is a discharge tube. Both of the end is connected with the two metallic plates. The metallic plate which connected to the positive terminal of the battery called anode, and the metallic plate which connected to the negative terminal of the battery called cathode. As you can see here, the cathode contains some holes, or it is called the perforated cathode. When we apply high voltage to this discharge tube from the cathode, cathode rays will forms, and also it is found that from the anode some particles are coming through this cathode. As you can see here, these red rays, these are coming from the anode and passing through the holes of the cathode. The charge of the particles shown here, the rays coming from the cathode, they contain negatively charged particles, and the rays coming from the anode, they contain positively charged particles. And he kept an electrical field near to these anode rays and discovered or observed that it is attracted towards the negative field. And also when we kept a magnetic field over it deflects, which means the anode rays deviates towards the negative field of the electric field, and it also deflects with the magnetic field. From this, he concluded that anode rays consist of positively charged particles. Now we have the characteristics of anode rays. They are made up of charged particles, that is positively charged. They depend upon the nature of the gas taken. Anode rays are not protons. Anode rays are made up of gaseous ions. See, the reaction happens to the gas particles inside the discharge tube. When electricity passes, the gaseous atom loses its electrons and converted into positive ions. Here A stands for the atom of a gas, and when we apply a high voltage to it, this atom loses its electron and converted into a positively charged ion, and these ions constitute the anode rays, and the electron lost from the atoms, they constitute the cathode rays. That means the cathode rays consist of electrons and anode rays consist of positively charged gaseous ions. In case of hydrogen, anode rays are made up of protons because hydrogen atom contains only one electron and one proton. When it loses its one electron, there remains only protons. So the anode rays are protons when we use hydrogen gas. See the equation. Hydrogen atom, when we apply high voltage to it, the hydrogen atom loses its one electron. And what is remaining? Only one proton is remaining because hydrogen atom contains only one electron. When it loses that one electron, it remains proton only. What is left in the atom? Only one proton is left. So when we use hydrogen gas inside the discharge tube, the anode rays consist of only protons. The charge of the proton is taken as positive 1 unit, and mass of the proton is same as that of the hydrogen atom. That also we consider as 1 unit, or it is 1840 times heavier than the electron. The third subatomic particle is neutrons. Neutrons have same mass of proton and no charge in it. Since it is electrically neutral, the particles were named as neutrons. Neutrons were observed in the nuclear reactions. Nuclear reactions are different from chemical reactions. In chemical reactions, there only rearrangement of atoms takes place. But in nuclear reactions, the atom is completely changing. In nuclear reactions, an atom can change altogether, but in chemical reactions, only the rearrangement of the atoms takes place. For the discovery of neutrons, James Chadwick bombarded the element beryllium with alpha particles. Alpha particles are the helium ions with the double positive charges. He observed that beryllium changes to carbon and the neutrons are emitted during the reaction. See the reaction. Beryllium, when hit by the fast-moving alpha particles, it converted into a new element, carbon, and also releasing neutrons. So we can conclude the subatomic particles, it's a charge and mass. Electrons, they are of negatively charged particles, so the charge is -1 unit. Mass 1 upon 1840 of a hydrogen atom. Protons, positively charged, and so the charge is positive 1 unit. Mass 1 unit. Neutron, it is neutral, so the charge is 0, and mass is taken as 1 unit. After the discovery of electrons, protons, and neutrons, J.J. Thomson suggested the model of atom, which is referred as plum pudding model. In this plum pudding model, the atom is a sphere in which electrons are embedded in a regular pattern like resins in pudding to neutralize the positive charge. Later, Rutherford discovered the presence of nucleus. During his study of radio waves using alpha particles, he observed that some particles bounced back were striking something small and dense at the center of the atom, while the other particles moved straightly. Let us see the Rutherford's experiment. Rutherford's experiment. It is used for, or from this experiment, the discovery of nucleus happened. This is the setup for the Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment. A radioactive substance kept inside the lead box from which alpha particles emerged, which is then passed through a small slit here and strikes on a gold foil, and the circular band outside is coated with a fluorescent substance so that we can see the glow when particles hit on it. As you can see here, there is a glow. So this band, this circular band is coated with a fluorescent substance so that we can see the glow when the particles hit on it. So in the experiment, the alpha particles come through the slit, will come and hit on the gold foil, and he observed that most of the alpha particles move through the gold foil and make glow on the uh, circular band behind the gold foil, and if very few particles bounce back. As you can see here, most of the particles are moving in the straight line, or it is through the gold foil, and a few number of alpha particles bounce back, and some are just deviates from its straight line. So the observations and the conclusions of scattering experiment as follows. Most of the fast moving alpha particles passed straight through the gold foil. From this, he concluded that most of the space inside the atom is empty. Some of the alpha particles were deflected by the foil by small angles, indicates that the positive charge of the atom occupies very little space. A few particles bounce off the nucleus. It indicates that all the positive charge and mass of the gold atom were concentrated in a very small volume within the atom. This center is called the nucleus. Rutherford also theorized that electrons revolve around the nucleus at a large distances from it. From this diagram, you can say how the alpha particle experiment works. As you can see here, these yellow lines were the alpha particles. Most of the alpha particles were passed through the atom without any change. That means there is so many space vacant inside the nucleus. Some of the alpha particles were deflected by the foil. As you can see here, some of the alpha particles deflected from the foil by small angles, which shows that the positive charge of the atom occupies a very little space. That is why a very few number of alpha particles deflected. When the alpha particles comes in contact with the positively charged nucleus, the alpha particles deviates from its or it repel from it and show a small deviation from its straight path. A few particles bounce back. A few particles bounce back from the nucleus, and from this we can conclude that all the positive charge and mass of the gold atom were concentrated in a very small volume within the atom. Hope you got an idea about the discovery of nucleus using the gold foil experiment. Now let us see how these subatomic particles placed inside the atom. The scientist named Niels Bohr presented the atomic model. According to him, the electrons revolve around the nucleus in their own orbits, just as planets do in the solar system. We already know that in the solar system, Sun is the center and the planets are revolving around it. The path of the planet is called orbits. Similarly, inside the atom or at the center of the atom, we have nucleus where protons and neutrons situated, and the electrons are revolving around the nucleus through the path called orbits. So it is just similar to the solar system. In the solar system, Sun is at the center, but in the atom, nucleus is at the center. Planets are revolving around the Sun. Here in the atom, electrons are revolving around the nucleus. Planets revolve in the orbits. In the same way, the electrons are moving in the orbits or orbitals, or we can say that shells. Now let us see number of the subatomic particles in an atom. How many protons, how many neutrons are present inside an atom? Let us see the term atomic number. Atomic number is denoted by the letter Z, and it is the number of proton or the number of electrons present in an atom of the element. Mass number of an atom is denoted by capital letter A. It is the sum of the number of protons and neutrons in an atom. So we can conclude that atomic number equals number of protons or number of electrons, because number of protons and number of electrons are equal in an atom. Mass number, it is the number of neutrons plus atomic number. Number of neutrons equal mass number minus atomic number. Now we have nuclide symbol. For the famous brands, they are using logos for identifying. By seeing the logo itself, you can identify which brand it is. In the same way, the nuclide symbols are representing the different elements. By seeing the symbol, you can say which element is that. The nuclide symbol of an atom is the symbol of the element with its atomic number as the subscript and mass number as the superscript. See the example. Here X stands for the symbol of the element, Z atomic number and A mass number. Z written as the subscript and A written as the mass number. A is the sum of protons and neutrons, and the atomic number Z is the number of protons or number of electrons present in the atom of that element. Let us see some examples. First, carbon. The symbol for carbon is C. Atomic number of carbon is 6. Mass number is 12. So the nuclide symbol for carbon is C 6 12. 12 is the mass number, so it can be written as the superscript, and 6 atomic number, which is written as the subscript. Fluorine symbol is Cl, atomic number 17 and mass number 35. So the nuclear symbol is Cl 1735. Mass number as superscript and atomic number as the subscript. Now, let us discuss about the arrangement of electrons. How the electrons arranged in the atom. Niels Bohr suggested the arrangement of electrons in the atom. According to Bohr, electrons revolve around the nucleus in shells or orbits. The shells are named as K, L, M, N, etc. The first shell or the first orbit is called K shell, second shell called L shell, third called M shell, and fourth called N shell. As you can see here, the shell just outside to the nucleus is called the first shell, or it is K shell. Then comes L shell, then M, and last N shell. The number of electrons in these shells follow a set of rules. How many electrons can accommodate in these particular shells? That can be calculated by using the formula 2n square, where n stands for the shell number. K, the shell number for K is 1, shell number for L is 2, and shell number for M is 3. For N it is 4. So by using the formula 2n square, we can calculate the capacity of each shell, or how many electrons each shell can accommodate. Let us see the structure of some atoms. First, hydrogen. The atomic number of hydrogen is 1 because it contains only 1 electron and 1 proton. So the Bohr model is the nucleus is at the center of the atom, that is shown by a sphere, and only 1 electron is there, and it is placed in the first shell, that is the K shell. Electron shown here as a black sphere and the nucleus as a red sphere. The nucleus is always at the center of the atom. Next, carbon. The number of electrons inside the carbon equals 6. The number of proton also 6. And the number of neutron equals mass number minus atomic number, that is 12 minus 6, because mass number of carbon is 12. The number of neutron equals 6. So the atomic structure will be like this. Inside the nucleus, 6 protons and 6 neutrons, and the remaining electrons, 2 electrons given to the first shell, that is K shell, because the capacity of K shell is only 2, and for the remaining electrons, they accommodated in the second shell, that is L shell, 4 electrons in the L shell. Next we have ions. An ion is a charged atom or molecule. It is charged because the number of electrons do not equal the number of protons in the atom or molecule. Or in other words, we can say that ions formed by losing or gaining of the electrons. An atom can acquire a positive charge or a negative charge depending on whether the number of electrons in an atom is greater or less than the number of protons in the atom. If an atom loses an electron, the number of protons exceeds that of electrons. So the atom gets a positively charged, because when the atom loses one electron, then the number of proton is more than that of the electrons. That means more positive charge is there. So the ion gets a positive charge, or the atom gets a positive charge. For example, sodium atom, when it loses one electron, it converted into Na plus positive ion, sodium ion. If an atom gains electron, then the number of electron will be increased and the protons will be less there. Chlorine, when add one electron, it converted into Cl minus because one extra electron comes. Electrons are of negatively charged, so when one electron comes, one extra negative charge will get to the neutral atom. That can be shown by using this negative sign, Cl minus. So we can conclude that when an atom loses electrons, it converted into a positive ion, and when the atom gain one electron or add one electron, it converts to a negative ion. When the electrons lost by sodium taken by the chlorine, then the Na plus and Cl minus ions together form sodium chloride, which is called the common salt. So the compounds are formed by combining the ions. And that is all about the structure of the atom. Hope you all got an idea about it. Thank you and have a nice day.